Hey, welcome to First Connect, another episode of a webcast at First Baptist Church that I do with you, along with David, right?
Yeah.
You can still do this with me, right?
Not cool last week, taking Memorial Day and taking matters and taking the show into your own hands. But I'm back.
Yeah, I'm a go road guy.
I'm back, and I'm hoping better than ever.
Okay.
We're going to see what happens here today. But it's good. Tell me what you've been up to, man.
Up to new in our house on the home front for us. The impact of COVID-19 is hitting us in lots of different ways, but on the whole exercise diet front.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've no consistency, consistently eat. We stock up the refrigerator a whole lot more than we normally do, and so there's constant food available to me personally. But exercise plans kind of went out the window. When we were getting ready to kind of kick in after the whole New Year's resolution, folks were going crazy there. So about the time that was getting ready to happen, we couldn't go back to the gym. Couldn't start going to the gym this year. And so we are on an exercise plan, which is really consistent of pretty rigorous walking in our neighborhood. We got hills. And then we're on a new diet plan right now where I'm eating lots of meals throughout the day. So you've witnessed a little bit of that today.
Yeah.
As well. So hopefully you'll see a little transformation in the brewer here.
A brand new you. Excellent, man. Well, this is a big weekend in the Powell household. The Powell household, which as of last Friday has now relocated. We just moved down crossover a couple of miles there, and it's been really good.
You're over my neighborhood area, aren't you?
Dude,
welcome to the hood.
This was right. This was an exhausting weekend.
Yes.
All of closing on selling your house, closing on buying your house, and then actually making the move. And worn out physically, and just kind of ready for some of not that for a little while.
Yes.
But in the course of it, I know this is what I was feeling, especially on Friday, move day. And we had about I had about 10 or 12 students and former students come out and help us load up a moving truck from my house and a truck and trailer from our storage unit, and move all of our stuff across town. Ooh. Like it's every time we move, it's this moment of getting your feet washed is what it feels like. Yeah. Having people come and serve you, and it's amazing and it's humbling. Yeah. The way people came in just to help and to serve, and then other people coming in. You and Missy came by. Some others came as well, just to say hey and to drop off welcome gifts. It's just an incredible moment, and that's really kind of what stuck with me, I think, coming out of this weekend, of that feeling of having our feet washed by people welcoming us in, which got me thinking a little bit about what Doug was preaching yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Great, timely.
It really was. This really was a good sermon. If you did not catch worship yesterday, we would always, right, Lance? Yeah. Always, as Doug would say, all of these sermons are worth listening to, but this one specifically yesterday, like I literally got home and I told Erica, I thought this was the best sermon Doug preached in several months. I really did. Yeah. Just this call, really for us to love our neighbors and to be willing to wash the feet of our neighbors, and especially our neighbors who don't look like we do. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a predominantly middle-class white church. That's who most of us are. We love, and we need more of those who are not that, but that's who most of us are. And just some of the calls that were coming out of that sermon yesterday, I'm thinking about what it's meant for me to be served by people who know me and love me. And I'm just thinking, man, what does it look like for me, for the Powell household, for the little Powell kiddos, to grow up in that, learning what it means to serve our neighbors, and that's some stuff I've been thinking through about that. How about you? Yeah,
there were just some great, the whole answer to this thing. Yes, in these times, our society, our culture impacted and suffering, and it's challenging enough with the COVID-19 and all those things. And just as we feel like maybe we're seeing a light out of that, the protests that began for standing up for standing for justice for those that injustice has been taken against. and then that turning into just rioting happening. So our country, so many communities are hurting. Just 100 yards from us, right here where we're sitting. People in our community, hundreds of people in our community, gathering out there. I hope standing up for the justice of those who have been oppressed as well. But we talked about this a lot. We can't have this whole full conversation here, but it's a challenge of how to live out the righteousness of Christ. But how do we live it out?
Yeah, well, sure. I had just written down yesterday a few things that Doug did say. Just a couple of comments from that sermon that stuck with me in the moment, and so I wrote them down. And one of them was this: the people of God stand with those facing injustice.
Yes. Yeah.
Guarding ourselves on two extremes. On one side, maybe sometimes our response is we want to just be quiet and put our heads in the sand and ignore it. Yeah. But one of his imperatives there was that we cannot simply stand on the sidelines. Yeah. It's important for us to pursue justice, to love mercy, to exercise compassion and empathy and sympathy. Yeah. We got to get in some way. Yeah. By the same token, guarding us on the other end by saying it's not our role to pour fuel on the fire. Yeah. So for us to be willing to be engaged and yet not to be finding ourselves stirring the pot. Yeah. A delicate balance, finding ourselves somewhere in between, but loving the things that God loves, wanting to be a part of justice in the world, living as God would have us to live here. One more statement he made there, it just stuck with me. He just said this: we can't afford to live just in our own cocoon, but as a part of this society. So as Christians, as church people, we are members of the kingdom of God, which means we are a part of ushering in God's kingdom, God's reign, God's justice and his love here. And so, man, I think what came out of this, as we were talking earlier, what really came out of this, I think, for us is just some questions that we need to be dealing with ourselves. Yeah. What does it mean for us to love our neighbors in such a way that we plead the cause of the innocent, that we seek to protect the weak, that we use what's been given to us for the sake of our neighbors. So again, I experienced getting my feet washed this weekend by people who know me, people who love me, and that's the question I've really got for myself, and hopefully for some of you guys watching today. What does it mean for us to go and to begin to wash the feet of our neighbors? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd encourage you, if you haven't, catch the pastor's message. Go pick that back up off of our website.
Totally worth it.
Or on our Facebook pages as well. It'd be worth checking out. Another resource that you had mentioned, the ELRC.
ERLC.
ERLC. Yeah. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, so the Ethics and Religious Liberties Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, Russell Moore directs that. Their conference actually 2 years ago was on racial reconciliation on the 50th anniversary of the death of Martin Luther King. It's good. There's some good stuff out there. You can Google around and go find MLK 50 ERLC. Yeah. You can find some really good messages on that can speak to it maybe better than a couple of guys like us can.
Yeah, just check out the kind of the link things on the screens. Great resource there as well. So take some action steps that way. At least get more informed about how to better respond and react as well. Dave, man, thanks for sharing a little bit about your Homefront and about how that impacted you as well.
Man, and we also last night got to sit down and talk with a couple of worship leaders in our church. One, pretty much anybody watching this is going to recognize anyway. Mike Paslay, our minister of music, got to talk some worship with him. But I don't really feel like I need to introduce Mike much as maybe Jared.
Jared Ruff, also one of the young adults in our church that kind of grew up here. David, you know him real well because in the interview he references David a couple times. So David, tell us a little bit more about Jared.
I got back here as student minister 6 years ago. Jared was coming into his sophomore year. Yeah. After a couple years, coming into his senior year, we had a conversation, and he became the worship leader of our youth group. Did an awesome job. Started timid and small in that, and it's been really cool to get to see over time him blossom and flower and kind of come into his own as a worship leader. Yeah. And so we hope that you guys are blessed by this interview with Mike and with Jared.
Guys, welcome. Glad you guys are here with us this morning. Thanks for doing
Welcome,
this
guys.
with us. And so, hey, let's just start out this way. Let's get a little bit of backstory on you guys around worship, music ministry, worship ministry as well. So, Mike, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your backstory. How did you get started in this thing of music ministry, worship leading?
Well, of course, I've loved music my whole life long. And when I was in the 8th grade, my parents and I were charters members of a new church. We met in an older couple's home in their den because they had a piano. And if those folks wanted a hymn with 5 flats, they got the melody with some wrong notes. And I did that throughout the end of junior high and high school. And then at the beginning of my sophomore year in high school, I was given opportunity to serve a part-time position during college. And out of that grew a call to my first full-time church where I met Pam. And
wow,
it's history.
It's history. That is some history there. Starting as a young boy. Jared, what about you? How did you get started in worship, leading worship ministry?
Yeah, so I have been playing guitar since I was probably 8 years old. I credit that to my dad, who knows how to play everything.
Yeah.
And we started on All Fly Away, G, C, and D. And from there, I was in Mike's choir for a long time and sang soprano solo way back when. And around coming into my senior year of high school, I was shooting baskets with David here. And I asked him, I was like, I don't think I can sing, but I'd like to step into a leadership role as far as leading our youth in singing. And so that was my first opportunity, was leading just alongside David and him mentoring me in that. And from there, as soon as I graduated, I had lots of opportunities. A youth pastor position at First Baptist Greenland was offered. I led at First Baptist Huntsville periodically. And I went all over the place. Throughout college, I went to Indiana to fill in as a pastor and also kind of a worship leader. And then I went on part-time at Huntsville one summer, and I had the opportunity of full-time at Huntsville or Josh Malden's intern and leading his college services. So I chose Josh Malden, and so I've been here ever since. And I've gotten some opportunities with our Sunday morning people, being Josh's intern, leading and planning our college services.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, Mike, talk to us just a little bit about your philosophy of worship. What is it? How do you understand it? And then how does that manifest here at First Baptist?
Well, I remember one year in Vacation Bible School, I tried to couch my philosophy of worship for the kids. And I said, worship is paying more attention to God than to anyone or anything else at any given place or time. And though I served a church 4 years full-time and then went to seminary, was in seminary for 4 years, and then served a church 11 years prior to coming to Fayetteville, it was really after I came to Fayetteville that I got a broader understanding. Most of my seminary training focused on corporate worship. They never said corporate worship, they just said worship. But it was here, a fellow staff member who was not a musician said, oh, you music guys are all alike. You think worship is an event. Worship is a lifestyle. It's a way of thinking. And that was pivotal in my life and my understanding of worship, and recognizing that what I tried to plan for a morning worship service in corporate worship for God's people should be growing out of a continuum of worship in my own life. And that was revolutionary. It was a struggle, and it remains a struggle to live that lifestyle of worship.
I'm the kind of the non-music guy in a sense at this table when it comes to, or in this Zoom call. David is a worship leader as well. He's done that as part of a job, part of this call at the last church he served at, and then he does that very well here. Fills in, leads in our Gauge services as well. And so I'm kind of maybe the lay person at the table when it comes to sense. And you talk about preferences. And that kind of sometimes that that kind of pokes at me a little bit, because when I'm sitting in the audience, how do you guys address the weight that I guess you would carry? I can only imagine that you carry as worship leaders, that there are dozens of preferences out there.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody like me says, I like that preference, and my preference might moves me, and it kind of draws me to the throne like others don't. How does that play in? Because it sounds like you almost talked about helping me through that. So what do you mean about that?
Yep.
Well, let me say this. I not thought about this till this moment, but Ron Owens, who lived in our area, some of our people remember when we did his work, The Christmas Lamb, back about 14 years ago. He wrote a book called Back to Worship. And in that book, he said, worship is not about us. It's not about getting our jollies through whatever musical style. Our worship is about him. And that one quotation in his book kind of freed me. It didn't change how I planned worship. It didn't change what worship looked like, but it changed my heart from removing me from the responsibility of trying to meet the expectations of other people, but simply sitting down at my computer every week and asking God to guide me as I planned a worship service that would make some mad, some glad, and some sad. And that's just it. I try not to think about meeting the needs of our people. I try my best to plan what God wants me to, using the resources that he's given us.
Hey, Jared, my guess would be that some people who don't actually know you might have a little wrong idea about you on your own personal musical style and influences and things you're comfortable with. Like me, you actually have your hands in a lot of different pots. Like what are some kind of styles that have influence on you in leading worship, and some that you use where maybe some people are they might think, well, they're only playing stuff from passion. Like Jared seems to be a passion guy lately. What all's in there for you?
Yeah, I would, my background, obviously being from my dad, is bluegrass and that kind of hymns and that kind of style. And that is honestly what I'm most comfortable with. My original background would be hymns and that style. When I went to a church in Indiana, that's all we did was hymns. So
you've had some pretty, what it sounds like, extensive experience. You kind of went through a quick laundry list of, if you will, of experiences you had, from preaching and playing in Indiana to being the worship leader at First Baptist Church, Huntsville, not Huntington. That's a different town.
We love you, Huntsville.
And to being the youth worship leader at Greenland, to playing with David, to being the collegiate ministry intern that did a lot of music. So that vast experience plays into you being what, 28, 29 years old? Or how old are you, I guess is what I'm getting at. Because your experience puts you a lot further down the road.
Are you single or no?
I'm 20. So not as old as I look.
Okay. Okay. And you got lots of different, as old as you look. I thought you looked like you were still 17.
Yeah, right.
And so with that,
you guys are nice.
What would 20-year-old Jared telling 17-year-old Jared right now? What do you wish you had known at 17 about doing some worship stuff that 20-year-old Jared can now tell him?
We kind of touched on this, but along the line of preferences, I'm a very big people pleaser. Like I would like for all of those preferences out in the congregation to be satisfied.
Eat them all. Yeah.
And everyone like everything, and that is just not a reality. So the amount of times that along with a verse that I've come in contact in Psalm 23 about the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want, realizing that it's not about what I want. I find myself to be a professional wanter. I'm always wanting something all the time. And when my satisfaction comes on when I do a good job, or if the congregation really liked what just happened, I'm going to be disappointed a lot of times. And that has connotations way beyond worship leading. I assume you three would know that in marriage, and your job, you're not going to if your focus is on Jesus, like you're not worried about your own performance and the implications that has for the gospel.
Well said. Well said.
Hey, Mike, you've been here almost 27 years, you say. Basic question, how has the music ministry at FBC changed
Wow.
in your time here? And how have you changed too?
Wow.
Well, it's changed pretty dramatically, but that's a long time for things to change. And so I've been very grateful that the church has been patient as I wended my way through the efforts to take us where I felt like God was leading us. And I'll say again, there are not very many churches like First Baptist Fayetteville. We are in an intergenerational church. We are in a college town, which has all kinds of implications for the backgrounds, the education levels, the different experiences people who come from, people from all over the world. And so all of those things have worked together in introducing me to things that were really outside my comfort zone. And though I am eclectic, I've always been pretty traditional. And what I was taught at seminary was very pinpointed. And I remember the day that I left the church going home for lunch, and I said, Lord, if I have to forget everything I learned at Southwestern Seminary to be on your page and to be God's man, give me the courage to do that. And so there have been changes in the church, but I would say the changes in me have been pretty dramatic. And I'm very grateful for a wife who gave me the perspective of the people on the other side of the pulpit in the congregation and challenged me when I didn't want to hear it and I didn't always receive it well. But it was imperative and very much important part. And she also came back and said, Mike, you don't have to forget everything you learned at seminary. God sent you. There were some great things that you got there, but you quoted a professor that said, write your philosophy of music in pencil. Be ready to change because the world changes. And we have to.
What does it mean to have minister in your title? There's the music and there's the minister. What's the ministry part of music ministry for you?
Well, the guy that was an influence in my life, the only minister of music that I was associated with, made it very clear to me. He said, Mike, music is our tool. Ministry is our task and our function. So I always made it sure on my stationery and on business cards, and people referred to me not to say music minister. I wanted minister to be first, minister of music. And I remember working hard to try to remain a minister to some kids that were in the youth choir, but just decided it wasn't their thing, and they got out. And I always wanted them to know that I was still their minister of music. And I think that, if you want to get your jollies in music, if you want to find your artistic fulfillment, the church is not the place to do it.
Right.
It's just not going to happen there. And so I'm grateful for mentors. Vincent Roberts, the guy I spoke of, exemplified that. All throughout my life, there have been ministers of music at very large churches that modeled ministry through music. I remember being at Music Week at Glorieta in a room of about 200 guys, and some of those guys were the big dogs at the big churches back before we had mega churches. And the clinician said, how many of you teach Sunday school? And I was stunned when more than 2/3 of those guys lifted their hands, and some of them were at pretty big churches.
Huh.
I was teaching Sunday school at the time and questioning whether I ought to be doing that or not. But that really encouraged me to realize that, I don't want people to see me primarily as a musician. And as I get older and my musical skills fall outside the realm of some of these other younger people who can do things that I can't do, I'm really grateful that my ministry has not been just as a musician, hopefully, and loving people and discipling people and caring for people and sharing the gospel with people.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, Jared, last question to you. Just this, what role do you see leading worship playing in your life in years to come?
So it's kind of been it's relatively short in the span of, I guess, a lifetime, but seems like forever for me trying to figure this out. But I think what God has showed me through the past almost 4 years of leading worship, um, seeming nonstop, is that God's given me a very unique skill set that I really don't want to let go to waste. And I want to give those back to Him and be a servant. And wherever God calls me in whatever capacity He calls me to do that in, I'm ready and willing. So.
Cool. Mike, last question. What are your hopes 10 years down the road, First Baptist Church? What are your hopes for worship at this place?
My hope is that nothing about our being a legacy church with a great tradition and a great heritage and history would be an impediment to us making tough calls and tough changes sometimes and steady change to accommodate a very diverse congregation and doing God's will as far as what worship looks like at First Baptist Church. We do have a great heritage, and who we are will grow out of that. But God alone knows where we're headed. And I want to say that I'm very heartened. Jared is not the only young man in our church or young woman in our church that understands what worship is in a way I had no clue at their age. And because that is their heart, I have every hope that First Baptist Church will realize its calling in that particular realm till the day Jesus comes back.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, guys, we appreciate and are grateful for how you lead. Mike, for how you care and lead from a staff position in life of our church. Jared, how you have just been faithful to the call, the skill sets that God has given to you, and using those as well. So, guys, thanks for taking some time with us.
Absolutely.
Good. Appreciate you.
See you guys. Well, hey, we hope you guys enjoyed that little sit down that Lance and I had with Mike and with Jared. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And I just want to say, Lance, what a blessing Mike Paslay is to First Baptist Church.
I'm glad you said that. Yep.
What he is, what a blessing he has been over these coming up on 27 years here, what a legacy he has here. And like we know Mike as a colleague, as a coworker, but he's also
I kind of think of him as like a big brother. You might have to think of him as dad.
Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike, really. No, but he's a good friend of ours. Yeah. And one thing nobody ever has to question about Mike is his heart.
Yeah.
Mike has potentially like the best heart on the staff, and one way you can see that so clearly. Yeah. We've talked with him about what it's been like to lead worship in the midst of the quarantine, and he has just said, "Man, this has been a bear. Yeah. This has been difficult. It's difficult to preach to an empty room. It's difficult to lead worship, corporate worship, when the people are not there with you, with all the guidelines, the restrictions that have been in place. Yeah. You can't do the choir." So things took on a very different look.
Total revamp, it felt like.
And so, so Mike did, I think, what he needed to do, and he really revamped, gave things a different look up there. And one thing he did was he went to Jared and pulled him up on the platform with him, and basically stood him next to him over there. Yeah. And I don't know if they ever had this exchange and said this or not, but they decided that he told them that they were going to be co-leading this thing, really. That's what it is. And that's just an expression of the humility that Mike shows to take Jared, who's about to turn 21. Yeah. Mike, who is, let's just say, up there. I won't call out his particular age there. Love you, Mike.
He would.
I would. Mike is 67. Put him up there really as a peer. Yeah. And lead worship well. And then on the flip side, to see Jared's respect for Mike, and the way that he shows deference to Mike, knowing that like Mike is the worship pastor of this church, and leads. But the way those guys have worked that and done it together, I think has been pretty cool to see.
he's done a great job of a good leader gives leadership away,
Yeah.
but not easily,
Right.
and not without some direction. He's done a great job of doing that. And maybe church family, you don't always get to see some of those kind of behind the scenes, but we get to walk in on rehearsals every now and then. We get to see some of those things happening, and it's it is in one sense masterful, and not trying to elevate beyond put somebody on a pedestal, but it's a mastering of some things of knowing the craft, but also having the heart, like you said,
Absolutely.
to minister with people.
I've so much enjoyed getting to see that from these guys. For me, I mean, truly, Jared is a protege of mine.
Yeah.
And actually, I've learned some things from him as well. Let me be clear to say that. But just to get to see him grow up and really come into his own, and especially as a worship leader, that's been a pretty cool thing to see.
Yeah.
Now you're talking behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You also spent some time behind the scenes this week. You were in my office all of a sudden with a camera. You want to tell the people what you were doing?
So I just ran from office to office earlier in the last week, because we want to tell you a little bit about some church happenings as part of this webcast. And so I just decided I'd go ahead and do kind of that old selfie interviews with some folks. Checked out the different ministry leadership areas to hear a little bit about those things. So some church happenings. We'll close out this episode of First Connect with some church happenings. So hear from some of our staff. Let's go check out with Josh. Let's pop in on Josh real quick and see what's happening with some collegiate ministry things. And let me see if I can interrupt him here. Hey man, can you tell me a little bit? I'm doing some church happenings with for First Connect here. Can you let us know about collegiate ministry stuff? What's going on with the book study you're doing on Wednesday nights? Where y'all at right now?
We are going to be in chapter 1 tonight. So we did the introduction last week, chapter 1 tonight, which is the title of that chapter is Your Phone is a Myth Teller. Okay. So we're going to talk about myths that our phones tell us and that we tell our phones, and how the gospel speaks to both of those.
Yeah, we're speaking to a phone right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're doing a little bit. So
they're not all bad, but we lie to them and they lie to us. So
yeah, cool. So Wednesday nights, when do you do this with your college students?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Are you do that in person, online?
On Zoom.
On Zoom. 6 p.m. What's the name of the book? Gotcha.
This is Our Time, Everyday Myths in Light of the Gospel by Trevin Wax. This is Our Time by Trevin Wax.
This is Our Time by Trevin Wax. Cool. All right, there's some collegiate ministry stuff. Josh, thanks a bunch. All right, so there's some collegiate ministry things happening and going on. Let's check in real quick with these youth ministry dudes and over here. Hey, we're on First Connect, fellas. What's going on student ministry-wise? Give me something. What's happening right now? Joe, this is Joe. He is our youth ministry intern. And also, give me a heads up. Give me a heads up real quick. Something youth ministry-wise going on this week.
Going on this week, the Joe Cast. That's about it.
Joe Cast. When do you do the Joe Cast?
We do the Joe Cast at 4 on Wednesday.
Actually.
Thank y'all. Thanks a bunch. Okay, let's find out. I think Lisa is up in the. She's down the hallway in the preschool area doing some stuff, hanging out with Linda Dilly, our preschool director. And so let's see what they're doing, because I saw them passing out some stuff. People are pulling up in their cars or picking up some things. And also, hey, children's ministry and preschool ministry things. Lisa Wheat's here in the preschool area. We've got a couple of interns back there in the back and as well. And there's Linda Dilly. So what's happening? What are these buckets about? Because I heard you talking about summer buckets. What are y'all doing with these?
These are our summer Bible buckets, and these have we're giving these one for each family. And what we do is we have a little booklet right here that talks about the summer Bible buckets, and it has scripture memorization, Bible writings, journals for the summer, Bible trivia.
Holy cow!
And it has, I know,
over the top, organized here.
Sidewalk chalk activity. That's basically a contest where they do Bible verses with sidewalk chalk for each family. Flip-flop praises, firefly catchers. Let's see, flashlight hunt where they're hunting for things.
So
in the
all
Bible.
the stuff's in the bucket that they can do.
Everything is in the bucket. Everything they need is right here in the bucket.
And so I've been seeing you, Grace. I saw you out in the rain handing buckets to somebody. Is that what you were doing?
Yes, Sarah and I have been. People have been driving in, and we have been running out there and handing the buckets out and putting them in the back of their car.
So cool.
And go deliver those.
Summer buckets of fun right here, preschool ministry. Thank you all. Okay, so let's go see what's going on with the pastor or any kind of church happenings that he might be able to let us know about. So let's go down here and see what we've got going on here. His door is closed, but he's cool with me coming in. because he likes me. I'm his favorite, for sure. So he's even behind another closed door back here as well. So check this out. Let's go back here. Hey, Doc.
Come on in.
Okay. Hey, Doc. I'm doing a little church happenings with First Connect. So you're on camera.
Yeah.
Careful what you say. And let me get it over here on you. Whoa, my camera's going crazy here.
Oh yeah.
All right,
always
so
going crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's going on? We've been checking with different staff members, church happenings. So from your perspective, what's happening right now? It's Monday morning.
Monday morning.
What's going on?
Monday morning, had a great staff meeting today, and right now I'm working on sermon and newsletter, trying to think about what's going on. Planning a deacons meeting with Dan Eccles, communicating a little bit.
Okay.
And just thinking about the sermon. Hey, favorite Bible verse.
Favorite Bible verse. Okay. Awesome.
Isaiah 26:3. I was just reading that verse. You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. And so I'm preaching on peace this coming Sunday.
Okay.
Don't know if this is going to be part of the sermon, or maybe a newsletter, or maybe just for me. But anyway, peace.
Oh, well, there you go. A little preview to Sunday coming. It's Monday now. Sunday's coming. So hope to see you there. Doc, thanks.
Hey, you bet. Good
All
to see
right.
you.
All right. There's a little church happenings with the pastor.
Peace.